In the shadowed grandeur of Milan's La Scala Opera House, during a glittering premiere of Tosca, a shocking murder unfolds. Hercule Poirot, the brilliant detective, is invited to the gala by the elegant Contessa Elena Rossi. Amidst passionate performers, fiery prima donna Sofia Lombardi, her lover tenor Alessandro Bianchi, intense conductor Maestro Vittorio Moretti, and innovative stage designer Luigi Ferrara, a wealthy American financier, Harlan Brooks, is stabbed in his locked private box with a sharpened prop dagger. As tensions rise from rivalries, debts, affairs, and financial scandals, Poirot uncovers hidden trapdoors, forged wills, and planted clues. Through meticulous deductions, he exposes a web of betrayal. The Contessa, driven by desperate debts, orchestrated the crime, framing others with clever misdirections. Justice prevails as Poirot reveals all in a dramatic finale, restoring order to the opera's dark secrets. Chapter 1. The Invitation to Milan. Hercule Poirot stood before the ornate gilt mirror in his suite at the Grand Hotel de Milan, his small, neat hands meticulously twisting the ends of his magnificent mustache. The wax gleamed under the soft glow of the chandelier, and he permitted himself a nod of satisfaction. It was not vanity, none, but order, symmetry in all things, even in the curve of a hair. His little gray cells, those marvelous instruments of deduction, were already at work. Though this journey to Italy promised no crime, no puzzle to unravel. Or so it seemed. The invitation had arrived 2 weeks prior, delivered to his London flat by a courier with the discreet efficiency of the old aristocracy. It was from the Contessa Elena Rossi, a woman of impeccable lineage whose late husband, the Conte Rossi, had once consulted Poirot on a delicate matter involving a stolen emerald necklace during a Venetian carnival. The Conte had passed some years ago, leaving his widow to manage a vast fortune and a passion for the arts. Now she extended her hospitality for the grand reopening of La Scala's renovated wings, where a lavish production of Puccini's Tosca would premiere. "My dear Monsieur Poirot," the letter read in elegant script, "your presence would honor us, for who better to appreciate the drama of opera than the master of human intrigue? A private gala follows, with intimates of the production." Poirot had accepted, drawn by the allure of Milan in autumn, the crisp air, the historic splendor of La Scala, and the opportunity to indulge in cultural refinement away from the fog of Baker Street. He packed his most formal attire, the patent leather shoes, the white waistcoat, the ebony cane with its silver head. As his train crossed the Alps, he reflected on the opera's theme: betrayal, passion, death. Ah, how life mirrored art! Upon arrival, the city enveloped him in its bustling elegance. Milan, with its Duomo spires piercing the sky like accusatory fingers, hummed with the energy of fashion and finance. Poirot's hotel overlooked the Galleria Vittorio Emanuele, where well-heeled Milanese sipped espresso under vaulted glass ceilings. But his mind turned to the evening's guests. Details gleaned from the Contessa's letter and his own discreet inquiries. There was Sofia Lombardi, the prima donna whose soprano could shatter crystal or soothe a savage heart. Her reputation preceded her, a voice of ethereal beauty, matched by a temperament as stormy as the Adriatic. Rumors whispered of her Neapolitan origins, rising from humble chorus lines to stardom, though not without scandals, affairs that fueled tabloid speculation. Conducting the orchestra was Maestro Vittorio Moretti, a Milanese native with a beard like a Renaissance painter and eyes that burned with artistic fervor. His interpretations of Puccini were legendary, yet he carried the weight of past failures. A botched premiere in Rome that had nearly ended his career. Moretti's intensity bordered on obsession, they said, making enemies as readily as admirers. The young tenor, Alessandro Bianchi, brought youthful vigor to the role of Cavaradossi. Handsome, with dark curls and a voice like molten gold, he was Sophia's on-stage lover, and, if gossip held truth, off-stage as well. Bianchi's charm masked a reckless streak, debts from Monte Carlo casinos nipped at his heels, or so Poirot had heard from a mutual acquaintance in Paris. Luigi Ferrara, the stage designer, was the visionary behind the production's sets, elaborate constructions of painted canvases and mechanical illusions that promised to transport audiences to Napoleonic Rome. A Florentine by birth, Ferrara's innovations had revolutionized opera scenery, but his temper flared at criticism, and whispers spoke of rivalries with traditionalists. Finally, the American financier, Mr. Harlan Brooks, whose dollars underpinned the entire venture. Brooks was a self-made man from New York, blunt and ambitious, with little patience for artistic niceties. His investment in La Scala was as much a bid for European prestige as a financial gamble, though Poirot suspected ulterior motives, perhaps a foothold in Italian society for his expanding empire. As dusk fell, Poirot donned his overcoat and stepped into the waiting carriage. The streets were alive with theater-goers, their furs and jewels catching the gaslight. A fine mist rolled in from the canals, wrapping the city in a veil of mystery. La Scala loomed ahead, its neoclassical facade stern and imposing, shadows pooling in the arches like unspoken secrets. The opera house, rebuilt after wartime scars, now gleamed with fresh marble and gold leaf. Yet Poirot sensed an aura of antiquity, of echoes from centuries of applause and intrigue. He presented his invitation at the grand entrance, where ushers in livery bowed deferentially. Inside, the foyer buzzed with anticipation, perfumes mingling with the scent of polished wood, voices rising in a polyglot symphony of Italian, French, and English. Poirot moved through the crowd with his characteristic mincing step, observing without seeming to. A cluster of society matrons exchanging barbed compliments, a critic scribbling notes with a predatory gleam, a stagehand darting backstage with hurried urgency. The Contessa greeted him near the staircase, her black gown adorned with diamonds that rivaled the chandeliers. "Monsieur Poirot, how delightful. Milan welcomes you." Her smile was gracious, but her eyes held a flicker of strain. Perhaps the weight of hosting, or something deeper. She introduced him briefly to the others as they passed. Sophia, radiant in emerald silk, Moretti nodding curtly, Bianchi flashing a charismatic grin, Ferrara gesturing animatedly about his designs, Brooks shaking hands with a grip like iron, his American accent cutting through the chatter. Escorted to the royal box, Poirot settled into the plush seat, the velvet curtains framing a view of the auditorium below. The house lights dimmed gradually, the orchestra tuning in a discordant prelude. As the audience hushed, Poirot's gaze swept the sea of faces, noting the subtle tensions. The way Sophia glanced warily at Brooks, how Moretti's shoulders stiffened near Ferrara. Ah, yes, the stage was set, but for what performance? The little Belgian detective leaned back, his gray cells alert as the overture began. Chapter 2. The Aria of Suspicion. The great crimson curtains of La Scala parted with a whisper of silk, revealing the opulent set of Tosca's first act. The Church of Sant'Andrea della Valle, rendered in Luigi Ferrara's masterful strokes of faux marble and gilded altars. The orchestra, under Maestro Vittorio Moretti's baton, swelled into Puccini's overture, a cascade of strings and brass that filled the vast auditorium like a rising tide. Hercule Poirot, ensconced in the royal box with its vantage over the glittering parterre, adjusted his opera glasses and allowed himself to be drawn into the spectacle. Ah, the precision of it all! The harmony of music and drama, where every note carried the weight of human passion. It was, he reflected, not unlike the unraveling of a mystery. Layers upon layers, each revealing a glimpse of truth. Sophia Lombardi made her entrance as Floria Tosca, her emerald gown flowing like liquid fire under the stage lights. Her voice, when it first soared in the duet with Alessandro Bianchi's Cavaradossi, cut through the air with the clarity of a diamond blade slicing silk. Poirot leaned forward slightly, his small egg-shaped head tilted in appreciation. What power! What emotion! The prima donna's soprano held the audience in thrall, her notes climbing to heights that seemed to brush the painted ceiling. Bianchi, as the ardent painter, matched her with a tenor of golden warmth, their on-stage chemistry igniting sparks that Poirot suspected extended beyond the footlights. Yet, even in this moment of artistic triumph, the detective's keen eyes noted subtleties. A slight tremor in Sophia's hand as she clutched her fan, a fleeting glance from Bianchi toward the wings, where shadows danced like conspirators. Maestro Moretti conducted with fervent intensity, his arms sweeping in broad arcs, his bearded face etched with concentration. The orchestra responded flawlessly, the cellos groaning with ominous undertones that foreshadowed the opera's tragic arc. Below, in the stalls, the elite of Milan and beyond sat entranced. Dukes and divas, financiers and foreign dignitaries, their jewels winking in the dim light. Mr. Harlan Brooks, visible in his private box across the way, watched with the detached air of a man appraising an investment rather than savoring art. His broad American shoulders filled his tuxedo, and he consulted his pocket watch more than once, as if time were a commodity he begrudged. As the first act drew to its close, with Scarpia's menacing baritone echoing threats of intrigue, the applause erupted like thunder. Poirot joined in politely, his gloved hands clapping with measured rhythm. The curtains fell, and the house lights rose, signaling intermission. The audience stirred, a murmur of conversation rising as patrons made for the foyers and bars. Poirot remained seated for a moment, observing the flow of humanity, the way a dowager adjusted her lorgnette to gossip with her companion, how a young couple exchanged secretive smiles. It was then that the peculiarities began to manifest. From his elevated position, Poirot caught sight of Sophia Lombardi, still in costume, slipping into a side alcove near the proscenium. She was not alone. Maestro Moretti followed her, his face flushed beneath the beard. Their exchange was heated, Sophia's gestures wild and accusatory, her arms flailing as if warding off an invisible foe. Moretti's responses were curt, his finger jabbing the air for emphasis. Words were lost in the din, but the body language spoke volumes. Anger, perhaps betrayal. Poirot's mustache twitched. Interesting, very interesting. Not far away, Alessandro Bianchi detached himself from a cluster of admirers and darted backstage, his furtive glance over his shoulder suggesting haste or secrecy. What errand compelled him during this brief respite? Poirot filed it away. Then his gaze shifted to Mr. Brooks, who had risen from his box and cornered Luigi Ferrara in a corridor visible through an open door. The stage designer, his sleeves rolled up as if fresh from labor, held a crumpled blueprint in one hand. Brooks loomed over him, his voice carrying faintly, a brusque demand laced with impatience. Ferrara's replies were animated, defensive, his free hand gesturing toward the paper as if explaining some flaw or innovation. The American's face darkened, and he shook his head emphatically before striding away, leaving Ferrara to smooth the blueprint with evident frustration. The Contessa Elena Rossi, returning to the box with a glass of mineral water for Poirot, noticed his absorbed expression. "You observe everything, monsieur. Poirot, like a hawk among sparrows." She settled beside him, her fan fluttering gently. "Is the performance to your liking?" "Mais oui, Contessa," Poirot replied, accepting the glass with a bow of his head. "It is superb, Mademoiselle Lombardi. Her voice, it is a marvel. And yet—" He paused, his green eyes twinkling with that peculiar light that betokened his gray cells at work. "And yet?" The Contessa leaned closer, her diamonds catching the light. "You sense the undercurrents, no doubt. This production, my dear detective, has been a veritable cauldron of misfortunes. Delays in construction, Ferrara's ambitious sets required endless adjustments. Accidents, too. A falling sandbag narrowly missed Sophia during rehearsals, and she swears someone tampered with her costume, loosening seams to embarrass her on stage. Maestro Moretti accuses Ferrara of deliberate sabotage, claiming the designs interfere with his acoustics. And Mr. Brooks—" She lowered her voice, glancing about. "He threatens to withdraw his funds if the premiere falters. He calls it bad business, but I suspect deeper grievances. The man has made enemies here with his blunt ways." Poirot nodded slowly, cataloging these revelations with the precision of a librarian shelving books. "Ah, Contessa, in the world of opera, the drama off-stage often eclipses that which is sung. Passions run high, egos clash like cymbals. It is the human condition, amplified by the spotlight." Before she could respond, the lights dimmed once more, and the audience hushed as the second act commenced. The set transformed into Scarpia's opulent apartment, shadows playing across velvet drapes and flickering candelabra. Sophia's aria, Vici d'arte, filled the space, a lament of such poignant beauty that Poirot felt a rare stir of emotion. Yet midway through, a muffled thud echoed from the wings, a dull impact, like a heavy object striking wood. Most dismissed it as a stagehand's clumsiness, perhaps a misplaced prop. But Poirot's instincts prickled, his body tensed imperceptibly. In the royal box, the Contessa whispered, "What was that?" Poirot merely raised a finger to his lips, his eyes fixed on the stage. The act proceeded without further incident, building to its climactic confrontation. Bianchi's portrayal of the tortured Cavaradossi was riveting, his cries of defiance ringing out. Moretti drove the orchestra to feverish heights, the music swelling to mirror the intrigue. As the curtains fell for the final intermission, applause thundered again. But Poirot noted Sophia's bow seemed strained, her smile fixed, her eyes darting toward the shadows as if seeking an unseen presence. The performance concluded with the third act's tragic finale. The mock execution turned real, Tosca's leap from the battlements enacted with Ferrara's ingenious machinery, a platform that lowered seamlessly into mist-shrouded depths. The house erupted in ovations, calls for encores bringing the principals back thrice. Sophia curtsied deeply, but her pallor was evident even from afar. Bianchi beamed, yet his hand lingered too long on hers. Moretti bowed stiffly, his expression triumphant yet shadowed. Ferrara remained unseen, his work speaking for him. As the audience filed out, the select guests converged on the opulent foyer for the Contessa's gala. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over marble floors, waiters circulating with trays of champagne flutes and delicate canapes. Laughter mingled with animated discussions of the night's triumph. Poirot accepted a glass, savoring the effervescence, while conversing lightly with a cluster of admirers. The Contessa flitted about, her hosting flawless. Sophia, changed into a scarlet gown, held court near a fountain, her laughter brittle. Bianchi hovered nearby, solicitous. Moretti discussed tempi with fellow musicians. Ferrara sketched idly on a napkin, and Brooks, ever the outsider, nursed a whiskey in a corner, his brow furrowed. It was amid this revelry that the scream pierced the air, a high, piercing wail from the depths of the opera house, echoing through corridors like a ghost's lament. Glasses paused mid-sip. Conversations halted. The Contessa's face drained of color. "Dio mio," she murmured. Poirot set down his flute, his gray cells igniting. The guests exchanged uneasy glances, and a few moved toward the source, the private boxes upstairs. Inspector Giovanni Lombardi, who had been enjoying the performance incognito, pushed through the crowd, his official air emerging. But it was Poirot who felt the familiar thrill. The game, it seemed, was afoot in the shadowed opera house of Milan. Chapter 3. The Body in the Box. The scream, sharp and laden with terror, reverberated through the marbled halls of La Scala like the final note of a discordant symphony. It originated from the upper levels, where the private boxes overlooked the now empty auditorium. The gala guests, moments before immersed in the effervescent chatter of post-performance delight, froze as if caught in a tableau vivant. Champagne flutes hovered mid-air, laughter died on lips painted with the latest Parisian rouge. Hercule Poirot, ever the observer of human frailty, set his own glass down with deliberate calm on a nearby pedestal, his cat-like eyes narrowing toward the staircase. "Mon Dieu," he murmured. "The drama, it continues." The Contessa Elena Rossi, her face ashen beneath the powder, clutched at Poirot's arm. "What horror is this? We must go, quickly." Her voice trembled, yet there was a steely undercurrent, the resilience of one accustomed to society's underbelly. Around them, the assemblage stirred into motion. Sophia Lombardi, her scarlet gown swirling like blood on snow, pushed forward with wide eyes. Alessandro Bianchi followed close, his hand protectively on her elbow. Maestro Vittorio Moretti barked commands to the lingering staff, his conductor's authority undiminished. Luigi Ferrara, napkin still in hand from his sketches, trailed, with a look of bewildered curiosity. And from the fringes, other invitees whispered speculations. Poirot, with his mincing gait, led the ascent, the Contessa beside him. The scream had come from the direction of the private boxes, specifically, as a white-faced usher confirmed, from the one reserved for Mr. Harlan Brooks. The door to the box stood ajar, a sliver of golden light spilling into the corridor like an invitation to nightmare. Inside, the air hung heavy with the metallic tang of blood and the faint residue of cigar smoke. There, slumped in the velvet armchair facing the stage below, was the American financier himself. His tuxedo, once impeccably tailored, was now marred by a dark stain spreading from his chest. Protruding from the wound was a jeweled dagger, its hilt encrusted with paste gems that caught the lamplight in mocking twinkles. Brooks's eyes, glassy and unseeing, stared upward at the ornate chandelier as if accusing the crystals of complicity. His right hand dangled limp, a half-smoked cigar discarded on the carpet, its ash intact in a perfect cylinder. A young soprano from the chorus, the source of the scream, stood trembling in the doorway, supported by a stagehand. I came to deliver a note," she stammered, "from the Contessa." The door was unlocked, and there he was. She buried her face in her hands, sobs racking her slight frame. The Contessa swayed, her fan dropping to the floor with a clatter. Poirot caught her deftly, easing her into a nearby chair. "Courage, madame," he soothed, though his mind raced ahead, cataloging the scene with the precision of a Swiss watchmaker. The box was small, intimate. 2 armchairs, a low table with a decanter of untouched brandy, heavy drapes muffling sound from the outside world. The door, he noted, bore a sturdy bolt on the inside, now slid back. No windows, no other exits apparent. The carpet showed no footprints beyond the usher's recent ones, and the air held no scent of recent struggle, save for the blood. Word spread swiftly, and within minutes Inspector Giovanni Lombardi arrived, his uniform crisp despite the late hour. A Milanese through and through, with a mustache that rivaled Poirot's in luxuriance. Though lacking, the detective privately thought, the same elegant curl. He surveyed the room with professional detachment. "Signore e signori," he announced, his voice booming. "No one leaves this opera house until questioned. This is murder, plain and foul." His assistants cordoned off the area, while a doctor was summoned to confirm what was evident. Harlan Brooks was dead, slain by a single thrust to the heart. Poirot, granted leeway due to his reputation and the Contessa's endorsement, examined the body closely without touching. The dagger was no ordinary weapon. Its design mimicked the prop used in Tosca's second act, the very blade with which the heroine dispatched Scarpia. But this one had been altered, the retractable stage blade replaced with a sharpened steel edge, lethal and unforgiving. Brooks's gold pocket watch, chain snapped as if in a hasty grab, lay open on his lap, its hands frozen at 9:47, the height of the second act. The cigar, a Havana of fine quality, smoldered faintly still, suggesting the death was recent, perhaps during the performance itself. Inspector Lombardi began his interrogations in an adjoining salon, the suspects herded like errant sheep. First, Sophia Lombardi, no kin to the inspector, a coincidence that elicited a wry smile from Poirot. She perched on a settee, her composure cracking like fine porcelain. "I was on stage the entire time," she insisted, her voice a shadow of its operatic power. "Ask the chorus. They'll vouch for me. Mr. Brooks, he was a patron, nothing more." Yet her fingers twisted a handkerchief, and Poirot noted the evasion in her eyes. Alessandro Bianchi followed, his youthful bravado faltering. "I slipped away briefly during intermission, to adjust my costume, you understand. The tenor role demands perfection." He glanced at Sophia, a silent plea passing between them. The inspector pressed, "And your relations with Brooks?" Bianchi shrugged. He was generous but demanding. No quarrel, though. Maestro Moretti, pacing like a caged lion, admitted to no absence. "I conducted without cease, my orchestra can attest. Brooks? A Philistine with a checkbook. He meddled in artistic matters he didn't comprehend. his fists clenched, betraying deeper animosity. Luigi Ferrara, wiping sweat from his brow, claimed immersion in his workshop below stage. Touching up a mechanism, the battlements for the finale. Brooks accused me of over-budgeting earlier, but that's all. His eyes darted to the dagger, recognition flickering. The Contessa, revived with smelling salts, revealed tensions. Harlan argued with everyone today, over finances, creative choices. He hinted at discrepancies in the accounts, threatened audits. But locked in his box? Impossible for an outsider. Poirot, listening from the sidelines, interjected occasionally with pointed questions. To the inspector, "The bolt, mon ami, was it engaged when the body was found?" Lombardi confirmed it had been, suggesting suicide or an internal deed. But the wound's angle argued against self-infliction, and no powder residue indicated a struggle absent. As the night wore on, alibis intertwined like the plot of the opera itself. Sophia's chorus confirmed her presence, yet one hesitated over a brief disappearance. Bianchi's maid alibi emerged, but timed loosely. Moretti's musicians swore loyalty. Ferrara's assistants nodded assent. Brooks's papers, rifled from his pocket, showed notes on embezzlement and affairs, arrows pointing to multiple motives. Poirot stepped outside for a breath of fog-laden air, the Milan streets silent under street lamps. "The murderer is among us," he confided to the inspector, who grunted agreement. "Clever, yes, but the little details they betray. The watch, stopped. Deliberately? The cigar, undisturbed? Ah, the puzzle assembles." Back inside, as suspects dispersed under guard, Poirot's gray cells hummed. The shadowed opera house held its breath, the body in the box a silent sentinel to secrets yet unveiled. Chapter 4. Whispers in the Wings. The morning light filtered through the high-arched windows of La Scala, casting elongated shadows across the labyrinthine corridors, like fingers pointing accusatory directions. Hercule Poirot, impeccably attired in a dove-gray suit with a fresh gardenia in his lapel, navigated these passages with the assurance of one who had mapped them in his mind overnight. Sleep had been brief. His little gray cells had churned through the details of Harlan Brooks's demise. The dagger, the watch, the undisturbed ash, refusing repose until patterns began to emerge. Now, with Inspector Giovanni Lombardi's permission, he embarked on a solitary exploration of the opera house's underbelly, where secrets whispered in the dim recesses. The air backstage was thick with the scents of sawdust, grease paint, and lingering tobacco, remnants of the previous night's frenzy. Stagehands bustled about, dismantling minor props under the watchful eye of a foreman, their conversations hushed in deference to the tragedy. Poirot paused at the entrance to Sophia Lombardi's dressing room, knocking softly. The door creaked open to reveal the prima donna, seated before a mirror framed by glaring bulbs, her face devoid of makeup and thus stripped of its theatrical armor. She looked vulnerable, her dark eyes shadowed by fatigue. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, gesturing to a chaise longue cluttered with discarded costumes. "You come early, like the dawn chorus. What more can I tell you? I sang, I bowed, I celebrated, until that dreadful scream." Poirot seated himself carefully, avoiding a tangle of feathers from her Tosca headdress. "Mademoiselle, it is the small truths that illuminate the grand deception. Tell me of Mr. Brooks. He was more than a patron, n'est-ce pas? His attentions, were they welcome?" Sophia's lips tightened, her fingers tracing the edge of a silver compact. "He was a brute, A man who thought money bought everything, including affection. He demanded favors in return for his continued support of the production. I refused him outright, or more than once. Last week, in this very room, he cornered me, his breath reeking of cigars. I slapped his face and told him to leave. She lifted her sleeve slightly, revealing a faint bruise on her wrist, purpled like a storm cloud. He grabbed me then, but I pulled away. If that's motive, then yes, but I was on stage when he died. Poirot nodded, his expression sympathetic yet probing. And your relations with Signor Bianchi? Rumors abound of a deeper connection. A flush colored her cheeks. Alessandro is my colleague, my friend, perhaps more. But Brooks knew nothing that could harm us. He was too busy chasing his own shadows. She averted her gaze, and Poirot noted the lie in her hesitation, but pressed no further for now. Leaving her, he descended a narrow staircase to the rehearsal rooms below, where the echo of phantom melodies lingered. Alessandro Bianchi was there, practicing scales at a scarred piano, his voice rich but strained, breaking on a high note. He turned at Poirot's approach, wiping sweat from his brow with a silk handkerchief. Ah, the famous detective, come to accuse the tenor? We always play the heroes on stage, but off. He trailed off with a bitter laugh. Poirot smiled faintly. Heroes or villains, monsieur, it is the truth that defines. You vanished during intermission. Why? Bianchi leaned against the piano, his posture defiant. To adjust my costume, as I said. But truth? I met Sophia's maid in the corridor. She mended a tear in my cuff. Ask her. She'll confirm. His eyes shifted, and Poirot detected the rehearsed quality, the words too pat, like lines from a libretto. And Brooks? Debts, they say, dog your steps. Did he hold them over you? The tenor's face darkened. Yes, damn him. Gambling. Monte Carlo, you know how it is. He offered to clear them for influence over Sophia. I told him to go to hell. But murder, I'd sooner duel him honorably. Yet his fists clenched, knuckles whitening. Poirot departed, pondering the web of affections and animosities. Next he sought Maestro Vittorio Moretti in his cluttered office, a sanctum of stacked scores and yellowed manuscripts. The conductor hunched over a desk, scribbling annotations with a quill that seemed anachronistic in the modern age. He looked up irritably, his beard bristling. What now, Poirot? I've no time for games. The production must go on. Rehearsals resume tomorrow. Precisely, Maestro, Poirot replied, perching on a stool. Art endures, but justice demands its due. You argued with Brooks. Why? Moretti slammed down the quill, ink splattering. That American barbarian. He flirted shamelessly with Sophia right under my nose. I warned him off during rehearsals, told him she'd never stoop to his level. He laughed, called me a jealous old fool. Perhaps I am, but my baton strikes notes, not men. He flexed his hands, strong from years of wielding authority, yet Poirot observed no telltale marks of violence. The descent continued to Luigi Ferrara's workshop, a cavernous space beneath the stage, alive with the clank of metal and hum of machinery. Gears and pulleys hung like mechanical vines, blueprints pinned to walls depicting intricate traps and illusions. Ferrara, clad in oil-stained overalls, tinkered with a winch, his face smeared with grease. "Detective," he greeted without looking up. "Come to admire my creations, or accuse me of turning them lethal?" Poirot examined a scale model of the set, marveling at the hidden compartments. "Your ingenuity, signor. It is remarkable. Trapdoors, secret panels, ideal for unseen movements. Ferrara straightened, wiping his hands on a rag. Brooks accused me of embezzling. To fund my frivolous inventions, he said. We argued yesterday. He threatened to expose me. But I was here, welding scenery during the performance. My assistants can swear to it. He gestured to a coil of wire on the bench, and Poirot, with a gloved hand, pocketed a similar stray piece from the floor. Thin, flexible, perhaps useful, for more than mechanics. As midday approached, Poirot joined the Contessa for tea in her private salon overlooking the piazza. She poured from a silver service, her hands steady despite the ordeal. You've been busy, Monsieur Poirot. Any revelations? He sipped the Darjeeling, savoring its delicacy. Many threads, Contessa. Motives abound. Rejection, debt, jealousy, greed. And Brooks's will, tell me of it. She set down her cup with a clink. I glimpsed it once. He boasted of it. His fortune divided among us, the production's key players, but with stipulations. Success meant bonuses, failure, forfeiture. I invested secretly myself to honor my husband's love for opera. Debts from his follies linger, you see. Her eyes misted briefly, but she composed herself. Poirot leaned forward. And access to the boxes, those hidden ways. Known to few, designers like Ferrara, conductors for cues. But in the fog of performance, who notices a shadow? Returning to La Scala, Poirot requested blueprints from the archives, spreading them across a table in the green room. Lines crisscrossed, passages from wings to boxes, levers for effects. One trapdoor led directly beneath Brooks's seat, operable from below. A timeline formed in his mind. At 9:47, Sophia mid-area, Moretti conducting, Bianchi off-stage momentarily, Ferrara in his lair. Yet alibis interlocked loosely, like ill-fitted gears. A stagehand approached hesitantly. Signore, you seek whispers? Last night I saw a figure in the catwalks, cloaked, moving toward the boxes, but with the lights, it vanished. Poirot's mustache quivered. Merci. The pieces align. As evening shadows lengthened, he felt the net tightening, the whispers coalescing into accusations unspoken. Chapter 5. The Phantom Clue. As twilight descended over Milan, casting a purplish haze through the opera house's clear-story windows, Hercule Poirot orchestrated a meticulous reconstruction of the fatal performance. The auditorium, emptied of its glittering audience, echoed with an eerie stillness, the seats like silent witnesses to the unfolding drama. Inspector Giovanni Lombardi, grumbling at the Belgians' theatrical methods, had nonetheless assembled the suspects on the vast stage, their faces illuminated by the harsh work lights that banished the romantic glow of the previous evening. Sophia Lombardi, in a simple rehearsal skirt, paced nervously. Alessandro Bianchi lounged against a prop column, feigning nonchalance. Maestro Vittorio Moretti tapped his baton impatiently on the podium. Luigi Ferrara fiddled with a control panel for the scenery, and the Contessa Elena Rossi observed from the wings, her fan a shield against the tension. Mes amis, Poirot announced, his voice carrying with surprising resonance in the cavernous space. We shall reenact Tosca as it transpired last night, not for art, but for truth, each in your place. Mademoiselle Lombardi, your arias. Signor Bianchi, your entrances. Maestro, conduct as before. Signor Ferrara, operate your mechanisms precisely. I, Hercule Poirot, shall time every movement with this. He produced a silver stopwatch, its tick audible in the hush. The orchestra, a skeleton crew of volunteers, struck up the overture under Moretti's direction. The curtains parted, and the performance commenced in ghostly facsimile. Poirot moved like a shadow himself, stopwatch in hand, notepad at the ready, darting from stage to auditorium to boxes. At the first intermission's mark, he noted Bianchi's brief absence. Exactly 3 minutes, enough for a hurried errand, but not, perhaps, a murder. Sophia's heated exchange with Moretti replayed in whispers, their words inaudible, but gestures telling. As the second act unfolded, Poirot positioned himself near Brooks's private box, the door now sealed with police tape. At precisely 9:47 by his watch, the time frozen on the victim's timepiece, Sophia was mid-area on stage, her voice a poignant echo. Moretti waved his arms in fervent command. Bianchi waited in the wings for his cue. Ferrara, below, cranked a lever for a set change, the trap door creaking open with a groan that matched the earlier thud. The Contessa, simulating her seat in the royal box, rose briefly, citing a need for air, her path crossing a concealed corridor. Poirot halted the proceedings with a raised hand. "Stop. Here, at this moment, the murder occurred, yet all are accounted for, or appear to be." He descended to the workshop, where Ferrara demonstrated the trap-door's mechanism, a panel sliding silently, leading to a ladder that ascended to the boxes above. "See, it's for quick scenery shifts," Ferrara explained, "but locked during shows, unless overridden." Inspector Lombardi, rummaging through Brooks's effects in an adjacent room, unearthed a small vial from the dead man's inner pocket. Clear glass, labeled with a skull and crossbones, it contained a residue of white powder. "Poison, arsenic perhaps," the inspector declared, holding it aloft. "And unused. Suicide, then? He drinks but stabs himself instead, or plants it to mislead?" Poirot examined the vial with his magnifying glass, noting the cork's freshness, no signs of tampering. "Non, Inspecteur. The thrust was forceful, from front with a twist, not self-inflicted. The watch smashed not by fall but by deliberate heel. See the imprint? And this vial, a red herring, placed post-mortem to suggest despair." He pocketed a thread clinging to the label, scarlet silk matching Sophia's gala gown. The group reconvened in the green room, where alibis began to fray under Poirot's gentle but relentless probing. A search of Alessandro's quarters, authorized by the inspector, yielded a bundle of letters hidden in a costume trunk, passionate missives from Sophia detailing their affair. One, dated weeks prior, lamented Brooks's blackmail. "He has proof of our nights in Venice. Letters intercepted. He demands silence or ruin." Bianchi paled as they were read aloud. "Yes, he threatened exposure, to ruin my career, her reputation. But I confronted him privately, not with a dagger." Sophia, confronted next, collapsed into a chair, tears streaking her cheeks. "Those letters, he stole them from my dressing room. He wanted me to betray Alessandro, to spy on the production's finances for him. I refused, but the fear, it consumed me." Her hands trembled, and Poirot offered a handkerchief, observing the matching scarlet thread on her cuff. Maestro Moretti, under scrutiny, confessed to a violent exchange with Brooks mere hours before the gala. "In the foyer, he mocked my conducting, called it overwrought. We nearly came to blows. I shoved him against the wall. But that was all. Witnesses saw him walk away unscathed. His baton, examined, bore a dent, but no blood. Ferrara, defensive, revealed a deeper grudge. Brooks ruined my brother in New York, invested in his theater, then pulled funds, bankrupting him. Suicide followed. I came to Milan for revenge. Yes, but financial, by exposing his own frauds. Not murder." Poirot noted the designer's left-handed grip on tools mismatched to the wound's angle, which suggested a right-handed assailant. The Contessa, sipping restorative brandy, admitted her own vulnerabilities. Harlan and I discussed investments privately. He suspected embezzlement, not by me, but others. I begged discretion, for the opera's sake. Her brooch, a jeweled pin, caught Poirot's eye, sharp enough to prick, perhaps to smash a watch. As night deepened, Poirot wandered the catwalks alone, the opera house a maze of ropes and pulleys. A faint draft led him to an overlooked vent, connecting the wings to the boxes, a phantom path for a stealthy figure. Dust disturbed recently, a footprint partial but telling, a woman's heel, size petite. Gathering the suspects once more in the foyer, under the grand chandelier's sparkle, Poirot's eyes gleamed with revelation. The clues phantom no longer. The vial, the letters, the mechanisms. They point not to one, but to a conspiracy of sorts, or a single hand planting discord. Murmurs rippled, accusations flew. Sophia blamed Moretti's jealousy. Bianchi eyed Ferrara's vengeance. Moretti accused the Contessa's greed. Yet Poirot silenced them. Patience. The truth emerges from the shadows. He produced the collected threads, the wire, the footprint, pieces of a mosaic. A final clue. The cigar's rare brand, traced to Moretti's private stock, but stubbed out prematurely, ash preserved as if staged. The killer wished us to see chaos, but order prevails. Inspector Lombardi arrested no one yet, but guards were posted. As the group dispersed uneasily, Poirot retired to his hotel, the puzzle nearly complete, the phantom clue solidifying into accusation. Chapter 6. Echoes of Betrayal. The fog that had shrouded Milan for days thickened into a veil of rain, pattering against the opera house's roof like impatient fingers drumming on a table. Inside La Scala, the atmosphere was no less oppressive, the air heavy with unspoken accusations and the faint, lingering odor of grease from the machinery below. Hercule Poirot, undeterred by the weather, arrived early that morning, his patent leather shoes leaving precise imprints on the damp marble floors. He carried a small evidence case, procured from Inspector Giovanni Lombardi, containing the jeweled dagger, the smashed watch, the poisoned vial, and other trifles that, to the untrained eye, seemed insignificant. But, to Poirot, they were the instruments of revelation, each echoing betrayals long concealed. He began in the inspector's makeshift office, a repurposed cloakroom cluttered with files and coffee stains. There, under the harsh beam of a desk lamp, Poirot examined the dagger anew with his magnifying glass. The hilt's gems, though faux, bore smudged fingerprints, overlaid and indecipherable, as if wiped hastily with a cloth. Yet clinging to the blade's base was a speck of grease, dark and viscous, identical to the lubricants in Ferrara's workshop. "Ah," Poirot murmured to himself, "the hand that wielded this was familiar with tools." Inspector Lombardi, peering over his shoulder, grunted. Ferrara, then. His prints might match. But Poirot shook his head. "Non, Inspecteur. Observe the wound's angle from the autopsy report." He gestured to the photographs spread on the table. The entry point high on Brooks's chest, slanting downward to the left. A left-handed thrust, delivered with force from someone standing close. Ferrara, as we saw in his demonstrations, is right-handed, his dominant grip on the wrench, the quill. This rules him out, though not his complicity. The inspector rubbed his mustache thoughtfully. "Then who? Moretti? He's left-handed. I noted it when he signed his statement." Poirot's eyes twinkled. perhaps, but consider the cigar, that rare Cuban blend, imported exclusively for the maestro. He claims it was stolen from his office during intermission, yet the ash, undisturbed, suggests the victim lit it moments before death, savoring it calmly. Why would a suicidal man, or a victim in struggle, leave such a perfect cylinder? Lombardi paced the room. Planted, then, to implicate Moretti. Or to divert, Poirot countered. Echoes, mon ami, betrayals that resonate like a poorly tuned violin. Leaving the office, Poirot ventured into the auditorium, where rehearsals had resumed tentatively, the chorus murmuring arias under a substitute conductor. He sought out Moretti in the orchestra pit, the maestro brooding over a score, his left hand absently tapping rhythms. "Maestro," Poirot began, without preamble. "Your cigar? When did you last see it?" Moretti looked up sharply. "Before the performance. I keep a box in my drawer, locked, mind you. Someone picked the lock. A professional thief, perhaps." But Poirot detected the flicker of unease, the way Moretti's fingers tightened on the page. A thief in an opera house full of artists? Possible. But tell me of your rivalry with Brooks, beyond the flirtations with Sophia. Financial, perhaps? The conductor's beard quivered. He invested, yes, but skimmed profits, diverting funds to his American ventures. I confronted him. He denied it. If that's betrayal, it's his, not mine. As evening fell, Poirot arranged a discreet surveillance, enlisting a trusted usher to watch the wings. His instincts proved fruitful. At midnight, under the dim glow of safety lights, he overheard muffled voices from a secluded alcove. Creeping closer, concealed by a velvet curtain, he discerned Alessandro Bianchi and Sophia Lombardi, entwined in urgent whispers. "He deserved it," Alessandro hissed, his voice low but fervent. "Blackmailing us, threatening to expose everything, the affair, the letters. If only we'd acted sooner." Sophia's reply was tearful. "Hush, amore, our alibis hold. I was on stage, you with the maid. No one suspects." Poirot stepped forward then, his presence announced by the tap of his cane. "But I, Hercule Poirot, suspect much." The pair startled, Sophia clutching Alessandro's arm. "You plot not murder, but deception. Minor lies to shield your love. Confess them now, before the echoes grow louder." Under his piercing gaze, they crumbled. Alessandro admitted forging a note to the maid, bribing her for the alibi. Sophia revealed hiding a duplicate key to Brooks's box, given to her in one of his advances, but sworn she hadn't used it. "We feared his wrath," she sobbed, "but we didn't kill him." Poirot nodded gravely. "Betrayal of trust, yes, but not of life. Go, but speak no more falsehoods." The night yielded another crack. The Contessa's alibi, previously ironclad, fractured during a late interview in her salon. Seated amid porcelain figurines and faded tapestries, she sipped chamomile tea, her composure elegant yet brittle. "I remained in the royal box throughout," she reiterated. "Yet witnesses, a box attendant, recall you excusing yourself briefly during the second act, citing illness." Poirot pressed gently. "A migraine, perhaps? Or a rendezvous?" Her cup rattled in its saucer. "Very well. I stepped out for air. The fog, the heat oppressed me. I wandered the corridor but returned before the act's end. Harlan was alive when I glanced into his box earlier." Poirot leaned forward. "And what did you see? A man at ease or troubled?" "Troubled," she conceded. He muttered about discrepancies, funds missing from the production. He suspected Ferrara, but also others. Her eyes darted away, betraying more. By dawn, Inspector Lombardi, armed with circumstantial threads, the grease, the left-handed wound, the stolen cigar, arrested Luigi Ferrara in his workshop. The designer protested vehemently as handcuffs clicked. "This is madness. I designed sets, not deaths. The grease? Anyone could have taken it. Tools go missing all the time." The inspector was unmoved. "Your grudge, your access to the trapdoor, it's enough for now." Poirot, present at the arrest, raised a hand. "Wait, mon inspecteur. The puzzle is almost complete, but this piece fits poorly. Ferrara's right hand dominates. The wound demands otherwise. Release him, for the moment. Instead, summon all to a final gathering. Tomorrow, in the auditorium, under the full lights, I, Hercule Poirot, shall unveil the truth." Lombardi hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. "Very well, but if you're wrong—" "I am never wrong," Poirot replied with quiet certainty, though inwardly he acknowledged the risk. The echoes of betrayal still muddled, pointing in multiple directions. The suspects assembled the next afternoon, tension mounting like a symphonic crescendo. The stage was bare, save for a central table where Poirot laid out the evidence, the dagger gleaming malevolently, the vial's poison a silent threat, the watch's cracked face frozen in time. Sophia fidgeted with her necklace. Alessandro stood protectively near. Moretti scowled from the front row. Ferrara, rubbing his wrists, glared at the inspector. The Contessa maintained icy poise in a high-backed chair. As the clock struck 3, Poirot took the stage, his small figure commanding the vast space. "Mesdames et messieurs, we have heard the echoes of love betrayed, fortunes jeopardized, arts defiled. But one voice rings clearest, the killer's, hidden in plain sight." Murmurs rippled, eyes locked on him, the air electric with anticipation. Chapter 7. The Final Curtain. The auditorium of La Scala, bathed in the stark illumination of its house lights, held an air of solemn expectancy, as if the very walls anticipated the denouement of a grand opera. The suspects, assembled at Poirot's insistence, occupied the front rows like a captive audience. Sophia Lombardi, her fingers interlaced in her lap, eyes darting with apprehension. Alessandro Bianchi beside her, his arm a subtle barrier of protection. Maestro Vittorio Moretti, arms crossed over his chest, his bearded face a mask of impatience. Luigi Ferrara, freshly released from custody, rubbing his wrists with lingering resentment. And the Contessa Elena Rossi, seated apart in regal isolation, her black veil a shroud of composure. Inspector Giovanni Lombardi paced the aisle, his officers stationed at the exits, while Poirot himself stood center stage, the evidence arrayed on the table before him like props in a meticulously directed scene. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, his voice resonant yet measured, echoing through the empty hall with the authority of a maestro calling forth the overture. "We gather not for applause, but for truth. Harlan Brooks met his end in this house of illusions, slain by a hand as cunning as any villain in Puccini's score. The dagger from Tosca, sharpened to lethality. The watch halted at 9:47. The undisturbed cigar, the poisoned vial unused. These are the notes of our symphony of deceit. But Hercule Poirot has listened to the echoes, sifted the betrayals, and now the curtain rises on the revelation." He paced slowly, his small, neat steps punctuating his words, his hands clasped behind his back. The audience leaned forward, the tension palpable, like the hush before a diva's climactic note. Let us reconstruct, step by step, the motives that swirled like fog in these corridors. Mademoiselle Sophia, you, rejected by Brooks, bruised by his grasp, blackmailed over letters of love. Your perfume lingered on the dagger, a scarlet thread from your gown on the vial. Yet your alibi stands firm. On stage, visible to all, your voice the anchor of the performance. Sophia exhaled sharply, her hand flying to her throat. Then I am cleared? Poirot raised a finger. Patience, Signor Bianchi, your debts, your passion for Sophia, threatened by exposure. You vanished briefly, your shoe's heel matching the watch's dent. But your absence was too short for the deed. Your bribes to the maid mere shields for indiscretion, not murder. Alessandro nodded vigorously, relief etching his features. Yes, exactly. Maestro Moretti, Poirot continued, turning to the conductor. Your jealousy burned like a fever, Brooks flirting with your muse, mocking your art. Your left hand, strong from wielding the baton, matches the wound's angle. Your rare cigars placed at the scene, perhaps to suggest suicide, and your key to the mechanisms, allowing access via hidden paths. Moretti surged to his feet, his face reddening. Absurd! I conducted without pause. The orchestra saw me. Indeed, Poirot conceded with a nod. Witnesses confirm your presence. The cigar was stolen, the hand perhaps gloved to mimic your dominance. Echoes, maestro, betrayals planted to ensnare you. Ferrara interjected then, his voice rough with indignation. And me? Arrested on flimsy grease and grudges. My brother's ruin at Brooks's hands. Motive enough, you say. My workshop's tools sharpened the blade. My trapdoors offered passage. But my right hand rules me, not left. I welded below. Alibis from assistants. Poirot's mustache twitched in what might have been a smile. Précisément. You are the artisan, not the assassin. Your inventions were borrowed, your space invaded. Like the wire I found, flexible for picking locks or rigging delays. The Contessa stirred, her fan snapping open with a click. Then who, Monsieur Poirot? This charade grows tiresome. Harlan argued with all, his will tempting us with fortunes tied to success. But the box was bolted from within. No entry without notice. Ah, Contessa, Poirot said softly, pivoting to face her, his green eyes piercing. You pose the question, yet hold the answer. This murder was not born of sudden passion, but cold calculation, to silence a man who uncovered forgery in his own will. Brooks discovered the alterations, favoring you unduly, covering your husband's lingering debts. You, with your slight frame and knowledge of the house, from patronage and secret investments, wove the web. Gasps rippled through the rows. The Contessa's face paled beneath her powder, but she lifted her chin defiantly. Ridiculous. I hosted, I mingled, my seat in the royal box witnessed. Poirot approached the table, lifting the dagger with gloved hands. Observe. The grease from Ferrara's shop. You visited under pretense of admiring designs, sharpening the prop yourself. The left-handed thrust? You, Contessa, are ambidextrous. Your fan switches hands effortlessly, as I noted over tea. The cigar, pilfered from Moretti's office during your migraine absence, planted to implicate him. Inspector Lombardi stepped forward, intrigued. But the bolted door? No escape. Escape was ingenious, Poirot declared. Via the concealed panel in the box's wall, part of Ferrara's old renovations, known to you from blueprints reviewed as patroness. A slim passage to the adjacent corridor, emerging unseen amid the intermission throng. You entered through the trap door below, ascended the ladder, your petite heels matching the footprint in the dust. Stabbed Brooks as he smoked complacently, smashed the watch to falsify time, place the vial from your own poisons collection, for vermin in your villa perhaps, then exited via the panel, bolting the door remotely with a wire rig. That stray piece I pocketed. The Contessa's composure cracked, her fan trembling. Fantasy, no proof. Poirot produced a splinter of wood from his pocket, holding it aloft. This, from the panel's edge, snagged on your brooch, the diamond pin with its unique clasp. And the scream? Delayed by a clockwork device, stolen from Ferrara's prototypes, set to release a weight in the wings at the gala's height, drawing attention while you mingled innocently. Sophia whispered, "But why frame us all?" "To create chaos," Poirot explained. "Perfume dabbed on the hilt for you, thread from your gown, heel mark for Bianchi, cigar for Moretti, grease for Ferrara. A symphony of suspicion, diverting from the true conductor. You, Contessa, desperate for Brooks's fortune to salvage your estate, his death ensuring the will's execution before discovery." Overwhelmed, the Contessa slumped, her veil slipping. He would have ruined me. The forgery was minor to secure what was owed, but he laughed, threatened exposure. In the box, he confronted me. I acted in panic. Tears streaked her cheeks as she confessed fully, the weight of betrayal lifting like a final curtain. Inspector Lombardi handcuffed her gently, leading her away amid murmurs. The others exhaled in collective relief, Sophia embracing Alessandro, Moretti nodding gruffly, Ferrara sketching absently, as if to capture the moment. Poirot bowed slightly to the group. The opera house shadows no more. Justice, like a fine aria, prevails, pure, resounding. As he departed La Scala into the clearing Milanese dawn, his order restored, the little Belgian detective permitted himself a satisfied twirl of his mustache. The case closed, but the human drama, it endured eternally,